Welcome back to Women of Worth, the podcast where we uplift, inspire, and empower women to thrive in every area of their lives. Today, we're diving into a topic that's as complex as it is relatable: jealousy among women. Have you ever felt that sting of envy when a friend achieves something you've been dreaming of? Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of subtle competitiveness in the workplace or relationships. Jealousy is a powerful emotion that can quietly erode our self-esteem, relationships, and even our inner peace. But here's the truth: jealousy doesn't have to control us. Today, we're uncovering the roots of jealousy, why it happens, how it impacts us, and most importantly, how we can transform it into something positive. We'll explore real-life stories, scientific insights, and practical strategies to break free from the comparison trap, build self-confidence, and create uplifting connections with the women around us. So, grab your favorite drink, find a cozy spot, and join us as we explore moving from envy to empowerment. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. And tell us in the comments, what's one thing you've done to overcome jealousy or support another woman? We'd love to hear your story. All right, let's dive in and transform jealousy into a force for good.
Okay, so picture this, right? You're scrolling through social media and bam, there's your friend posting about their amazing vacation or, their dream job or their seemingly perfect family, and suddenly you feel this little twinge, a pang of, jealousy. It happens to the best of us, am I right?
It really does, yeah. It's a universal emotion.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this whole complex emotion, especially as it impacts women. So we're calling this jealousy within women, understanding and overcoming it. We've got a ton of research and real-life examples to unpack. So hopefully by the end of this deep dive, you'll be walking away feeling, empowered, not envious.
I love that you use the word empowered because that's really what it's all about. It's not about denying this very natural human emotion. It's about recognizing where it comes from so we can learn to manage it and maybe even use it as like a catalyst for growth, right?
I love that. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Our sources, they dive into some of the root causes of jealousy. And it seems like there's this complex interplay of societal pressures and cultural influences, and then, of course, our own individual psychology at play. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a perfect storm, isn't it? I mean, think about all the messages that we're just constantly bombarded with, like unrealistic beauty standards, right? And then the pressure to achieve certain career milestones. And then, of course, there's the whole perfect Instagram life thing. It's so easy to just get caught up in comparing ourselves to others and then feeling like, oh, we're falling short.
Yeah, and it's like everyone's playing this game with these invisible rules, and we're never quite sure if we're winning.
Right.
And of course, that makes us feel inadequate, even if logically we know that those quote-unquote rules are often arbitrary and honestly unattainable.
Exactly. And they're often designed to make us feel insecure, to keep us striving for something that might not even really exist.
Oh, for sure. And this is where our individual psychology comes into play, right? Because we all have our own insecurities, past experiences, and even, as the research points out, something called attachment styles that can make us more or less susceptible to jealousy. Like, for example, someone with an anxious attachment style might be more prone to feeling jealous in relationships. That's a biggie.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So it's not just about wanting what someone else has. It's often about those deeper insecurities and fears that we're carrying around, right?
Absolutely. And understanding those underlying vulnerabilities can really help us to navigate jealousy in a way, a much healthier way. And if we can pinpoint those triggers, those specific situations or even people that tend to evoke those feelings of jealousy, it gives us a good starting point, addressing the issue, the root of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it seems like social media is just a huge factor in all of this, right? Our sources talk about how it's really intensified our tendency to compare ourselves to others, which leads to those those not good enough feelings that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's the highlight reel phenomenon, isn't it? We see the amazing vacation photos, but we don't see the jet lag, right? And the arguments are over what to do that day, or you see the promotion announcement, but you don't necessarily see the long hours and the sacrifices that went into getting there.
Yeah. It's so easy to forget that we're only seeing this really curated sliver of someone's life. We're not seeing the whole picture, the messy, the complicated reality behind those perfectly filtered photos.
Right. And when we're constantly bombarded with these curated images, it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparing our own lives, with all their complexities and imperfections to these idealized versions of other people's lives.
Okay, so we've talked about like the root causes of jealousy, the societal pressures, the cultural influences, our own individual psychology. But how does this actually, how does this play out in women's lives? I mean, our sources, they highlight a few key areas: friendships, workplaces, romantic relationships, and even family dynamics.
I think what's important to recognize here is that jealousy can manifest in really subtle ways. It's not always this big dramatic outburst. It could be simple as withholding compliments from a friend or feeling resentful when a colleague receives praise.
Yeah, it's those little moments, those micro reactions where you find yourself thinking, why her and not me? Or you're feeling this twinge of bitterness instead of genuine happiness for the other person. It's tough.
Exactly. And those small actions, they can actually have a big impact on our relationships over time. They can create this undercurrent of tension, of resentment that just slowly erodes the foundation of the relationship.
Yeah. And one example from our sources that really resonated with me was the story of Sophie and Anna. They were childhood friends who drifted apart when Anna's career took off. And Sophie was happy for Anna, on the surface. But underneath, she was struggling with all these feelings of inadequacy and resentment.
Oh, that's so relatable, I think. It's so easy to get caught up in comparisons, especially with people that we're close to. It's almost as if their success somehow diminishes our own.
Right.
But of course, that's not actually true.
Not at all. But those feelings are very real, and they can have a significant impact on our relationships.
It's a classic example of how jealousy can just erode a friendship, even if it's unintentional. It can make us withdraw, become less supportive, and even start to see the other person as a threat rather than a friend.
And it's not just friendships where this plays out, right? I mean, our sources also talk about how jealousy can manifest in workplaces, especially in competitive environments where people are vying for the same opportunities. I'm thinking of Emily and Rachel's situation, which is highlighted in the material you provided. They were both going after the same leadership role, and their initial jealousy almost sabotaged their entire collaboration.
What's interesting about their story is that they were able to work through their jealousy by acknowledging it, communicating openly, and ultimately, finding ways to support each other's success.
Which is great. I mean, it gives me hope that it is possible to overcome these feelings and build stronger relationships, even in the face of competition.
Right. And it highlights the importance of addressing these feelings head on rather than letting them fester, because left unchecked, jealousy can really take a toll on us.
Oh, for sure. And that brings us to kind of the emotional cost of all of this. Our sources point out that jealousy isn't just an uncomfortable feeling. It can have a real impact on our mental and even physical health.
Absolutely, yeah. Research has linked chronic jealousy to higher stress levels, and we all know how that can impact everything, from our sleep to our immune system.
It's not just some fleeting emotion we can brush aside. It can have serious consequences for our well-being.
Exactly. And on top of that, it can lead to all sorts of relationship problems. We've talked about friendships and workplaces, but, jealousy can be especially damaging in romantic relationships.
That makes sense, right? Because romantic relationships often involve this deeper level of intimacy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
When we feel jealous in that context, it can really trigger all sorts of insecurities about our worthiness of love and commitment.
One story that stands out from the material is Maria's experience. She struggled with jealousy over her boyfriend's close friendship with a female colleague. She was constantly worried that he would find the colleague, more interesting or attractive, and it created a lot of tension and distrust in in their relationship.
It's so easy to let those insecurities take over, especially when we feel threatened by someone else.
Yeah. Maria's story highlights how jealousy can lead to, possessive behaviors, constant questioning, and even like attempts to control our partner's interactions, which ultimately damages the very relationship we're trying to protect.
It becomes this vicious cycle where the more jealous we feel, the more we push our partner away, which then fuels our jealousy even further. And that's not even touching on the complexities of family dynamics.
Oh, absolutely. Our sources also delve into how jealousy within families can be particularly complex, often rooted in childhood dynamics and sibling rivalry, and the pressure to live up to certain expectations.
It can get tricky.
Oh, yeah.
One example that comes to mind is Claire's experience of feeling overshadowed by her sister's academic achievements. It led to tension at family gatherings, resentment, and even strained her relationship with her parents, who, albeit unintentionally, contributed to the comparisons.
Yeah, it's as though there's this unspoken competition for love and approval within families, and jealousy can really fuel those negative feelings.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the roots of jealousy, how it manifests in different areas of women's lives, and the emotional toll it can take. But here's the thing, and this is what I find so encouraging. Our sources also emphasize that jealousy doesn't have to be this destructive force in our lives.
It's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? They offer some practical strategies for dealing with jealousy and even using it as a catalyst for growth.
I'm definitely ready to hear more about that. Let's dive into those strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Ready to trade in that green-eyed monster for something a little more, empowering.
Oh, absolutely. I am so ready. Give me all the strategies. Where do we even begin?
Well, the first step might seem a little counterintuitive, but it's really important. We have to acknowledge and reflect on those feelings of jealousy. Just recognize it's there. Don't judge yourself for it. Just kind of notice it as a signal, like, okay, something needs my attention here.
So instead of trying to push those feelings down or pretend they don't exist, we actually kind of lean into them.
Exactly. Think of it like a check engine light in your car. You wouldn't just ignore it, would you?
No way.
No, you'd figure out what's causing it so you could address the issue. And jealousy is kind of similar. It's trying to tell us something about our needs, our insecurities, or maybe even our values.
Okay, that's starting to make sense. But how do we actually do this reflecting? Do we just sit around and think about how jealous we are?
Well, journaling can be really helpful here. Just try, writing down the instances when you feel jealous. What triggered it? Who was involved? What were you, feeling and thinking in that moment?
Ooh, I like that. It's like turning those negative emotions into data points, like we can analyze them, understand them better.
Exactly. And as you start to examine those data points, you might start to see some patterns emerging. Maybe you always feel jealous when a certain friend posts about their travel adventures. What does that tell you? Is it really about wanting to copy their exact trip? Or is it more about, wanting more adventure in your own life, maybe more spontaneity?
That's such a good point. It's not necessarily about wanting what they have. It's about, wanting what that thing represents to us. So, okay, we've acknowledged the jealousy. We're working on understanding where it's coming from. What's next?
This is where it gets really interesting. One of the most powerful antidotes to jealousy is actually shifting your focus from what you lack to what you already have. Cultivating gratitude can truly be a game changer.
Okay, I've heard a lot about gratitude journals lately.
Yeah.
Is that what you're suggesting?
It is, yeah. It's a really simple practice, but it can have profound effects, Just take a few minutes each day to write down things you're grateful for. Even small things. It could be, a delicious cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind gesture from a stranger. Anything that brings a little joy to your day.
It sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would really help to shift your perspective. Instead of dwelling on what you don't have, you're consciously reminding yourself of all the good things that are already present in your life.
Exactly. The more you practice gratitude, the more you start to kind of rewire your brain to focus on abundance rather than scarcity. You start to see the world and your place in it through a more positive and appreciative lens. And it's not just about journaling, actively expressing gratitude to others, whether it's through a heartfelt thank you or a small act of kindness, that amplify those positive feelings.
Okay, so we're acknowledging our jealousy, we're practicing gratitude. What else can we do to tackle this green-eyed monster?
Okay, here's a big one. Instead of viewing someone else's success as somehow threatening to your own, what if you tried to reframe it as inspiration? Their achievements don't diminish your own. And in fact, they can show you what's possible and really motivate you to pursue your own goals. Remember Lauren's story? She was initially jealous when her friend got a big promotion, but she made a conscious effort to celebrate her friend's success and use it as fuel for her own ambitions.
Oh, yeah. It's about changing that competitive mindset, right?
Yeah.
To a more collaborative one, recognizing that we can all rise together. But honestly, sometimes those feelings of inadequacy run so deep that it's hard to even get to that point of celebration.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're stuck in that negative self-talk loop?
You're absolutely right. That's where self-compassion comes in. It's crucial to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend. Remember the affirmation from the source material, I am enough, and other success does not diminish mine. Repeating affirmations like that, even if they feel a little silly at first, can really help to shift your mindset over time.
Yeah. It's like giving yourself a little pep talk, a reminder of your own worth and your potential. I love that. But what about external factors? Are there things in our environment that we can change to help us overcome jealousy?
Definitely. Our sources, they talk about the importance of setting healthy boundaries, especially when it comes to social media. It can be such a breeding ground for comparison and envy. If you find yourself constantly comparing your life to those curated versions you see online, it might be helpful to take a break, a digital detox, or at least to be more mindful of who you're following.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big believer in digital detoxes. It's like hitting the reset button on your mental and emotional state. But sometimes, even with all these strategies, jealousy can feel really overwhelming. Like it's this big, scary monster we just can't control.
You're not alone in feeling that way. And our sources, they acknowledge that sometimes we need a little extra support. Therapy or support groups, they can be incredibly valuable resources for exploring those deeper-seated insecurities and developing healthier coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we don't have to go through this alone. There are people who understand and can help us work through these really complex emotions. Olivia's story, it's a great example of that. Working with a therapist helped her to address her feelings of inadequacy, and it completely transformed her perspective on relationships and her own self-worth. Okay. So we've talked about strategies for individuals, but what about like the bigger picture? How can we as a society create an environment where women are less likely to experience these really intense feelings of jealousy?
That's a great question. And it brings us to the concept of sisterhood over competition. Imagine a world where women genuinely celebrate each other's wins instead of seeing them as threats. It might sound idealistic, but it's a reality we can create together.
Oh, I love that vision. It's about shifting the narrative from me versus you to we're all in this together.
Exactly. Our sources, they suggest some really concrete ways to foster that supportive environment. One is to encourage collaboration over competition. Let's create spaces at work, in our communities, among friends, where we celebrate teamwork and shared success. Sarah's initiative of starting a mentorship program at her workplace is a fantastic example of this. It creates a structure where women are actively supporting each other's growth and development.
Yeah, it's about creating a culture of support and empowerment where everyone feels valued and has the opportunity to succeed. But that also requires open and honest communication.
Absolutely. Remember Emily's story? She was initially jealous of her friend's success, but when she opened up and talked about her feelings, it actually strengthened their friendship. It really highlights the power of vulnerability and honesty in any relationship. Let's normalize talking about jealousy with trusted friends or colleagues. It can help us understand our feelings, build stronger connections, and realize that we're not alone in this. And that's something we can all do starting today, to make a difference.
Vulnerability and honesty are so important. It's about creating a space where we can share our struggles without fear of judgment. But sometimes it feels like our culture, especially the media, actually promotes female jealousy. Think about all those classic movie tropes, two women fighting over the same man, the catty coworkers sabotaging each other. It's like we're constantly being fed this narrative that women are inherently competitive and just can't genuinely support each other.
It's a pervasive narrative, and it's so damaging because it reinforces these stereotypes and makes it even harder for women to break free from that cycle of comparison and jealousy. But here's the thing. There's actually a growing body of research that challenges those very stereotypes. Studies have shown that women are more likely to cooperate and collaborate than compete, and that we thrive in environments where mutual support is encouraged.
So it's not about denying that jealousy exists. It's about recognizing that it's not the only story or even the dominant one.
Yeah.
We have the power to to rewrite the narrative, both individually and collectively.
Absolutely. And that starts with each of us making a conscious effort to challenge those old limiting beliefs. When we see women supporting each other, let's amplify those stories. When we feel that pang of jealousy ourselves, let's use it as an opportunity for self-reflection and growth rather than letting it spiral into negativity.
It's about choosing to be a part of the solution, not the problem.
And remember, this isn't about being perfect. We're all going to feel jealous sometimes. It's a normal human emotion. The key is to not let it, control us, to not let it define us.
It's about recognizing those feelings, understanding where they're coming from, and then choosing how we want to respond.
And sometimes that response might simply be to, take a deep breath, acknowledge the jealousy, and then gently redirect our attention to something more positive and affirming, our own strengths, our own goals, our own unique path.
I love that. It's a practice, not a destination. We're all constantly learning and growing. So as we wrap up this second part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's one takeaway you'd like our listeners to hold on to? What's one action they can take this week to turn jealousy into growth?
For me, it's that reminder that we are all enough. Exactly as we are. Our journey is unique and valuable, and comparing ourselves to others will only rob us of joy. Let's celebrate each other's strengths and create a world where women empower each other to rise.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some more specific strategies for fostering that kind of supportive environment.
As we've been talking about this, sisterhood and celebrating each other's wins, it makes me think about the power of mentorship. Our sources highlighted Sarah's story and how she started a mentorship program at her workplace. It's such a great example of creating a structure where women are actively supporting each other's growth.
Mentorship is so powerful, and it can really take so many forms. It doesn't have to be this formal program. It can be as simple as, reaching out to someone you admire, maybe offering to buy them coffee, and just, pick their brain about their career path, or just being that listening ear for a friend who's, going through a tough time.
Yeah, being that support system. It's about recognizing that we all have something to offer and that sharing our experiences and knowledge can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
And remember, mentorship isn't just about the mentee benefiting. The mentor often gains just as much, if not more, from the relationship.
Oh, for sure.
It's this beautiful exchange of wisdom, support and encouragement.
I love that. But it's not just about formal mentorship programs or, one-on-one relationships. There's also a lot we can do in our everyday interactions to create a more supportive environment. Something as simple as, offering a genuine compliment to a colleague or celebrating a friend's success on social media.
Those small gestures can make a huge difference. Think about how good it feels when someone acknowledges your hard work or celebrates your accomplishments. It can really boost your confidence and make you feel seen and appreciated. And when we make that conscious effort to lift each other up, it creates a more positive and supportive atmosphere for everyone.
Yeah. And that brings me to another point that our sources kind of touch on, the importance of celebrating diversity. There's no one-size-fits-all path to success or happiness. Everyone's journey is unique and valuable.
Absolutely. When we embrace that idea, it becomes so much easier to appreciate others' achievements without feeling threatened by them. Instead of comparing ourselves, and focusing on our differences, we can start to see each other as allies on this journey of life.
We're all in this together. It's about recognizing that we all have different strengths and talents, and those differences are what make the world so interesting and vibrant.
Exactly. When we come from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, we can start to see the beauty in each other's uniqueness and celebrate the fact that there's room for all of us to shine.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into jealousy within women, I hope our listeners are walking away with a sense of hope and empowerment. This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It really has. And I think the key takeaway here is that jealousy doesn't have to be this destructive force in our lives.
Right.
It can be an opportunity for growth, for connection, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other.
We've talked about practical strategies for managing those feelings, for shifting our perspective, and for creating a more supportive environment for all women.
Remember, we're all in this together, and when we choose to lift each other up, we create a world where jealousy transforms into inspiration and where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
So what's one action you can take this week to turn jealousy into growth? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend you've been secretly envious of and offering, genuine support. Or maybe it's starting that gratitude journal or practicing self-compassion.
Whatever it is, remember this. You are enough, and your journey is unique and valuable. Let's choose to celebrate each other and create a world where women empower each other to rise.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into jealousy within women. We hope you found this conversation insightful and empowering. Remember, you're not alone in this.
And until next time, keep diving deep and keep growing.